Well, if 2020 has seen the rise of Bitcoin go off the charts, what will 2021 bring in terms of crypto outlooks? We now bring in our special guest here, Crypto Capital's very own Eric Wade. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year to you. So speaking of the new year, we did see the last year, 2020, close with an IPO, Coinbase, the sort of fidelity of cryptos, deciding that it would go public. What do we think is going to happen in that space? What does that portend for other IPOs in the new year?
Coinbase from the beginning has intended to provide Bitcoin investors with a relatively safe and regulation following on-ramp so that you can move your money from, say, your bank account and into something like Bitcoin or Ethereum or some of the other major cryptos that are out there, but do it in a way that Coinbase is following all applicable US regulations. So I'm pretty excited about that because it kind of shows that Coinbase is maybe a good case to see, is there an appetite for something like this? And then following that, I expect to see a lot of other companies that say, well, if Coinbase could do it, then 2021 could be let's get in on that as well. And don't forget, Coinbase has raised, I think, about $500 million from private investors and VCs. So this is going to be a good opportunity for the public market to value Coinbase, and Coinbase to come out of this maybe flush with a lot of cash. And if they're not flush with cash, then their investors certainly will be. And where do they put that money to work will be also a good story for 2021.
You know, we've touched a little bit on the parabolic rise of Bitcoin in 2020. What do you see for it in the new year?
We've got public companies that are well over $1 trillion market cap, and gold is multiple trillions, and real estate is trillions upon trillions. And then, don't get me started about the derivatives market, et cetera, that are, uncountable amounts of trillions. So if you think about, what would it take to get Bitcoin to that level, into the $1 trillion club? It does sound like, wow, that's going to take a lot of a rally, but just doing that, that's what it's going to take. And that would just get it on par with some of the larger public companies out there. Now, is that a fair comparison to say, hey, is Bitcoin, on par with Saudi Aramco or Apple or Amazon, those kinds of large companies? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe Bitcoin could be in time worth a lot more than that, because it is a global, unstoppable network and a global financial system. So, that $1 trillion watermark, I expect to see it sometime in 2021. And yeah, we're going to have to rally hundreds of percent to get there. Just be ready for volatility on the way up. Usually Bitcoin rallies see a lot of volatility on the way up.
All right, hold on for the ride. Well, something else you and I have talked about in the crypto space is digital currencies, and specifically central bank digital currencies. And you have been following some of the underpinning technology in those that is also investable. How do you see that conversation moving in 2021, specifically because we don't really have an on-the-record commitment that the Federal Reserve is doing much more than talking about it, studying it. But as you've said to me previously, behind the scenes, there's likely much more going on.
Yeah, likely much more going on is a good summary of that. In San Francisco, they're doing a lot of research for the Fed about, what even would the regulations have to look like before we could even offer this. So that's obviously the first step for central bank digital currencies in America. I think America may be following the rule of it's better to be slow and do it right than get there first and be the experiment with it. But that's not to say that there won't be a lot of other countries that are. And we're seeing a lot of news out of China that they're testing it out in certain segments of China and certain limited tests, but it's already to the point where they think they can release some of these central bank digital currencies to their citizens.
Yeah, and how much are you able to actually learn? How transparent is their learning process to the outside world in that respect?
They publish a lot of good information, and I'd say there's a a fair balance between what we
Okay.
can learn and what we can surmise, what they're not telling us. And it's really in no central bank's best interest to tell us everything before it's ready for public consumption. If you follow what I'm saying there,
Yep.
that we'd all like to have every piece of information be public about it, but the public overreacting or maybe misconstruing something in an early stage, I think maybe it makes sense for the central banks that are testing this out to do some of it in maybe a closed environment. And I know that sounds counterintuitive to what I usually say, because I like open source software. I like public information. I like everything on the blockchain being something that you can track. But a central bank digital currency, it's not the same thing. And they have every right to do their research in private, so that also maybe helps increase the amount of safety they can bring to this.
You mentioned blockchain there, and I want to pick up on that because what do you see in 2021 for investable assets in the blockchain space? There are always going to be new uses for the blockchain. And the underlying technologies, as you've explained to me, are investable. So, with something like immunity passports, for example, which is going to be a big conversation in 2021, I believe, how to track those who've been vaccinated and whether they can enter certain locations and countries based on that. Um, do you see more opportunities along those lines, even with the sort of post pandemic world we're hopefully going to see in 2021?
Absolutely. And because this is new year, I'll go back 2 years to our New Year's issue in the beginning of the decade. And that was one of the major themes that we predicted that would play out for this decade is we call it tokenization of everything, and not just things that you own and not just digital assets, but you brought up a good point, your identification, right? Your medical history, et cetera. I think that the case is being made for more and more of our information being trackable and trustable. And I know, there's a lot of people out there that really want to see increased privacy. And that's where I think blockchain really wins, is that it's possible for you to get the vaccine and to only share that with the right people that need to know, like say an airport, or say you're going into a hospital wing or something like that, and not have your information be out for the public to see, right? So it's maybe walking that fine line, a foot on each side of the fence, where your information can be trusted and on the blockchain, but only go so far as where you say it goes, instead of being in part of a public database that's hackable or shareable amongst anybody around the world. So I think that's something we're going to see a lot more talk about in 2021 and then going forward for the rest of the decade.
Let me ask one more question, and it's just a basic question. Very quick answer, if you please. And that is, what is the best way in 2021 for a novice investor to get into crypto? Go.
The easiest way to get involved is for viewers to make a commitment to themselves. Hey, I'm gonna learn how this works with $100 or $500 or something like that, right? A small amount of money that they take seriously, and go to Coinbase or Voyager or Binance.us or Kraken and commit to yourself that I'm going to get, some small amount of Bitcoin or Ethereum or, one of the blue chips, and just kind of walk yourself through it. And all of those exchanges have help that they can offer, and walkthroughs and tutorials and customer service. And just to close this whole circle out is we talked about what Coinbase might do with some of their money. I'm hoping that they do increase their customer service, because there's a wave of new people coming on board, and having better and more customer service for people would really suit the entire cryptocurrency industry well. So everybody, if you're in the sound of my voice, put a little bit more resources into customer service, because you got a lot of new customers coming on board that would love to be helped.
All right. Eric Wade, the editor of Crypto Capital. Thanks again.
Thanks. Take care and Happy New Year.
And if you'd like to catch up with more Stansberry research content, please check these social media channels and find us. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. I'm Jessica Stone.